Welcome back to the grind for another Act 7.2 guide. This is going to be quest number 5 with the Rage, Power Shield, and Hurt Locker lane with Poison Vulnerability. Now, ideally, champions that have access to Poison and do well with their special attacks are going to be ideal for this lane, but also because of Rage, every time you hit a certain damage cap, they're going to get a Fury, and at 5, they're going to become unblockable for the remainder of the fight unless you can remove the Furies. So Mystic champions that can nullify are actually very good options for this as well, especially if you have Mystic Dispersion Mastery unlocked. Now, I had Suicide Masteries at the time, and therefore it makes it a little bit more challenging because you do have to rely on your special attacks for damage for most champions. And because of that, you do end up hitting the damage cap frequently because of Power Shield, and therefore eventually the opponent goes unblockable. Apocalypse worked pretty well because he does have access to poison on his special 1, so you can benefit from the poison vulnerability, but as you can see, it only took a couple special attacks to break the rage cap, and so I actually tried a different method where I didn't throw my second special attack, therefore I didn't break the rage cap, and then I just relied on heavy attacks to get bleed damage to finish off the fight. And this does work well also because damage over time effects still do apply. So you can also rely on damage over time champions. Now, Longshot is one of the best champions for this lane probably because he has access to damage over time off of his special attack. If you throw his special 1 and a special 2, it does a lot of damage, but it's damage over time. It's not gonna break the damage cap, and therefore you can bypass the node quite well. And there are some champions on this lane that do gain buffs, and you can benefit from Mystic Dispersion if you have it, but also more damage from taking advantage of those buffs. So Longshot is a fantastic option. If you do have Suicide Mastery, it does make it a little bit more challenging, but he still does work, and I used him for a couple of the fights on this lane. Because of Hurt Locker, however, you are going to have to throw in some special 1s in between the special 2s in order to prevent the damage from Hurt Locker, unless you're going to be very comfortable countering with a heavy attack and avoiding taking that damage. But Longshot works very well. As you can see, I did take some damage. Some of it was from recoil. Now, Immortal Abomination is also a reasonable option because he has access to poison very easily, so you can take advantage of poison vulnerability. He also has some healing, so he works well with suicides, and he's a sustainable champion, and his special attacks do some decent damage as well. Not to mention, when you do go into acid burn, you will still benefit from the the damage over time effect of the acid burn effect and the bonus damage that bursts on each contact. So you can still do some good damage with Immortal Abomination. You will have to be cautious of the rage cap though. I was not paying attention to that, and after the special 3, Quake went unstoppable, and then a couple mistakes resulted in me dying, unfortunately, and therefore I lost my Immortal Abomination. I just went in and finished the fight with Nick Fury because he has a very strong bleed on his last hit with a light attack. He gets a good bleed, plus his special 2 can deal some nice damage as well with the Power Shield. Now, I did come in with ManThing because I wanted to give it a try with the access to poison. However, this ended up being a very long and painful fight, especially with suicides on and without Mystic Dispersion. I wasn't able to take advantage of the buffs and getting extra power. If you do have Mystic Dispersion active and you are not running suicides, I do think ManThing would be a very nice option because you can cycle through your special attacks much more quickly and get the bonus damage from having poisons active throughout the entire fight. Because I did not have those situations met, this did end up being a very long and painful fight, and I lost a lot of health from the recoil mastery. But you can see, if you can stack up multiple poison effects and multiple armor breaks, you can see how the damage could start to ramp up if you're able to throw many special attacks back to back. But we're going to skip the remainder of this fight and move on to the next fight, which is Captain America Infinity War. And I used Nick Fury for this fight, and I relied mostly on the bleed damage from his 5th and final light attack on his combo. But we did get some damage off of the special 2, and then we went with special 3s. Now, you do have to be careful because Nick Fury doesn't have any way to get around the unblockable phase from the rage node. And so if you do end up pushing him into 5 Furies from rage, the opponent is going to be unblockable. Now, the way around that, I suppose, would be if you do go into your second life and get the Fury, you can stack up your tactical charges and you yourself go unblockable, so you don't have to rely on parries or intercepts. You can just attack into his block to get your ins. But I ended up stopping after hitting 3 Furies, and I didn't want to throw any more special attacks and just finished off the fight with the bleed damage, and that seemed to work really well. The last fight on this path is Aegon, and Aegon was very easy to counter with Longshot because of all the Furies that he gains that you can then use your special 2 to nullify and get extra damage off of. And then once you do throw your special 2, you have that timer that allows you to continue to deal incineration damage with every buff that the opponent triggers during that phase. So if you keep hitting into Aegon and triggering those Furies, they're actually nullified and turned into damage. Plus, throwing heavy attacks during that time also gives you increased damage. So you can see here, we're running low on health and the recoil mastery is going to put us into a tough situation, but we throw off our special 2 and it very quickly does more than 50% of his health. And then every attack that we do into him after that would be triggering a Fury, but instead is converted into more incinerate damage, and this allows us to get him very close to dying. We throw off a special 1 to finish off the fight before the recoil damage gets us. So let me know which champions you use for this path. As I said, most Mystic champions will work very nicely. You can also use, as honorable mentions, Archangel, because that damage will bypass the nodes as well. You could also use Immortal Hulk, which I've heard works very nicely, and Hyperion would also be a reasonable option. I do hope this video was helpful. Good luck, and I hope to see you in the next video.